Death is what happens to you when you're a vegan. They lie to you. They hate themselves so much, they will only suck on quinoa for sustenance. They will tell you that this festering thing is in fact a steak.
Dude, this is not real.
Dolly, this is real. This is real.
You must have had a really bad debate with a vegan and got your...
I think this lady just needs to have sex.
Once I kissed a girl who's a meat eater, and then I looked over her shoulder and I saw a beef jerky wrapper.
Ew.
And promised myself I will never date another meat eater again, just because now I feel like I'm like secondhand consuming meat.
There was this Hindu guy sitting next to me. He calls the air hostess. Listen, I requested a Hindu non-vegetarian meal. And I'm thinking, what is this now? How can a Hindu eat meat?
There's one theory that human brain size increased because we had more access to protein via meat. There's some issues with this theory, and some people have...
Since you've shared with me we are physically herbivorous, how can people be saying that they are thriving on a carnivore diet?
It's
Do you think we're living in a matrix?
Absolutely. One of the matrices is the matrix, is just creating a reality that makes you only see animals as commodities, and it does not allow you to question.
Hey guys, welcome to Kindness with Amy. Today I am joined by my wonderful friend Arjun Kumar, who is an incredible content creator, educator, author, and animal activist. Welcome, Arjun.
Thank you, Amy. It's great to be here again
It's
after
so good to have you.
like what, 2 years?
Dude, last I saw you was 2 years ago in LA.
Oh my God.
That's wild.
Time has been flying by.
Absolutely. Well, there's so much that I want to talk about today with you, but specifically, I know that you have an insane background in studying biology and a great knowledge of the human body. So, Arjun, I wanted to know, is the human body physically designed to consume meat and dairy?
Well, the short answer is no, not quite.
Really?
Yeah, I think the thing that people get confused with is that they conflate physical design with behavior, right? They confuse anatomy with what they behave as, right? So technically speaking, we can behave like an omnivore. We can behave like a carnivore, right? We can behave like a cannibal, right? Like Jeffrey Dahmer. You can just eat humans your entire life, and you can behave like that, and you can, I guess, theoretically call yourself a cannibal then. But the thing is, the anatomy is very specific, right? It tells us exactly what we are. And our anatomy resembles that of an herbivore. And the China study has it's like the longest study on human anatomy. It's literally proven that we are anatomical herbivores, specifically a type of herbivore called a frugivore. So if you look at the way we chew, right? We chew side to side in a grinding motion. That is an herbivorous quality. When we sweat through our pores. We're not panting through our tongue. Our intestines are about 7 to 9 times the size of our torso. There's so many different traits about us that resemble an herbivore. Now, that's not to say that we can't eat meat. We could eat meat, right, for survival situations, let's say. But most herbivores can eat meat as well.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and most herbivores have canine teeth as well.
What?
So people always think that, oh, you have canine teeth, we're designed to eat meat. Well, most herbivores have canine teeth as well. That doesn't mean that they should be eating meat every day. So the point is, we thrive best on a frugivorous diet, right? On an herbivorous diet. So that's like really where our natural anatomy aligns with.
So then what about these doctors that are saying that people's brains became big because they were eating meat?
So that's a theory, right? I remember learning this when I was studying bio. So there's one theory that human brain size increased because we had more access to protein. Our ancestors had more access to protein via meat, right? There's some issues with this theory, and some people have pushed back on it, saying that when our ancestors ate meat, it actually introduced more diseases, so it also killed us quicker. But there's an equally viable theory that I feel like doesn't get enough attention, and maybe it's because it's a bit controversial, but an equally viable theory as to why the human brain sizes increased through our evolution is because humans started consuming mushrooms. specifically a type of mushroom called psilocybin. So
Okay.
you can see why there's a big issue about this, because psilocybin gets you high. So, but the interesting thing is that the reason that this is also an equally viable theory is because psilocybin specifically can replicate your neurons, which is insane, because for the longest time in the entire science community, they would say neurons cannot be replicated, it's impossible to replicate your brain cells. But now they've discovered neuroplasticity, and they've discovered some foods like psilocybin mushrooms that actually increase your neurons, and they make new connections in your brain. So that's one theory as to why human brain size is increased. And
So if we went with the other theory, which is that an increase in protein led to a larger brain size, to me, my takeaway from that is the fact that we had access to protein. As in, it's protein, not the fact that it's meat, so it's less about the ingredient, it's more about the nutrient.
exactly.
And you can get protein from anywhere.
Yeah, so it's a very weak argument, because you could, what's to say that a civilization that was completely plant-based was not getting more protein than a person sitting in a cave eating meat once a month? So it's a very weak argument to say that because we ate meat, we got more protein. But there's plenty of vegans and plant-based athletes that get enough protein, and some that get even more protein than a carnivore and omnivore. So I'm gonna go with the mushroom theory.
Look, it's really interesting because I was learning recently that millions of dollars are being spent by the meat and dairy industry to pay influencers and doctors and people to promote messages on social media, such as seed oils are bad, beef is good for you, carnivore is healthy for you, blah, blah, blah. All these types of things, right? Because you speak to anyone now, how much has carnivore diet just shot up in the last 12 to 18 months, right? Out of nowhere. And all these influencers are going carnivore. Anyone you ask, are seed oils bad? Everyone will say seed oils are bad, but will have no understanding of why they're bad. It's just they've seen online it's bad. So the meat and dairy industry is really working hard to keep this narrative alive that we need to be eating meat and dairy and it's good for us. And even taking it to the other extreme, that being carnivore is completely healthy. So since you've shared with me that from a purely biological perspective, we are herbivores. Yes, we are physically herbivorous. How can people be saying that they are thriving on a carnivore diet? That's what I don't understand.
See, the carnivore diet, it's really a survival mechanism, right? So the carnivore diet is a keto diet. That's what it's categorized as. And keto diets, although you can survive off of it in the short term, in the long term, it's going to mess you up. So this is really meant for those, I think perhaps it was an adaptation for our ancestors during the Ice Age, when there actually was nothing to eat except animals and you had to survive. But the thing is, again, it comes down to our anatomy. Just because we can digest something and we can survive off of it does not mean that that's what we're going to thrive off of. That does not mean that's what we're actually designed to do. So these carnivore diets will always, they'll say, oh, I feel great. But then 5 years later, you look at them, look at Paul, what's his name? Paul Saladino. Yeah, he was going crazy about the carnivore diet, telling everyone do this carnivore diet. He had a whole book on the carnivore diet, and then all of a sudden, 5 years into it, he's like, oh, I don't feel good. My heart palpitations are bad. And then he started incorporating fruit. And then he called it an animal-based diet. He's eating fruit and meat and calling it animal-based diet because he's still getting probably paid from the industry to promote meat. So he did not want to admit that his own health, as a doctor, his own health tanked. He still wanted to make his followers feel like he was, all in that carnivore game, but he's just rebranding a fruit and meat diet as the animal-based diet, which is very odd to me.
Yeah, it is really odd. It's just something that we're seeing everywhere now.
I think the thing is, the meat industry is smart because they know that they don't have science on their side, so they need to use propaganda. Because before, they would use all these got milk campaigns, real men eat meat, And then people kind of got off of TV. And then I think the vegan community fought back against the industry via influencers, via social media. And now they're realizing that the war is on social media. Now they're realizing that controlling the youth and controlling people's minds isn't going to be coming from television. It's going to be coming by making these deals with these influencers to push their agenda and their products, right?
Speaking of which, do you think we're living in a matrix?
Absolutely. I refer to this all the time. There's multiple matrices we live in, right? But I mean, the main thing I would, one of the matrices is the matrix, which is basically the entire industry that works with the pharmaceutical industries, that works with the government via lobbyists, that works with the influencers, and they work with businesses to subsidize meat and dairy products so that it's just so easy and convenient, and it's just right in front of people's faces that they're just like, duh, I'm just gonna buy McDonald's. Why would I put the extra effort to go find a vegan restaurant or go, make this meal vegan and tell them to take out the cheese and all this stuff like that? So the entire matrix of the matrix is just creating a reality that makes you only see animals as commodities and makes you normalize to that. And it does not allow you to question your reality, because now the companies are supporting this, the government's supporting this, and your own friends and family are supporting this. And that, I think, is the most effective way of manipulating people, because word of mouth marketing has always been the most popular. It's always been the most powerful way of marketing a certain product or brand. So once an industry has convinced your entire circle of friends and family to buy their products, you're going to naturally assimilate to that.
It's certainly the case, because I feel like most people are 100% brainwashed, and they're just brainwashed because they're just a product of society. They don't, because we don't, and the cycle starts from a young age. We don't teach children to critically think. And when there's a gap in critical thinking and you get older, you just fall into this system of consumption, system of not questioning. You don't question your government, you don't question your schools, you don't question your friends, your family, your parents, you don't question anything, right? You don't question your religion. It's just that all seems fine. And it's shocking, because we know the data is like, it's not like this is our opinions. The data is black and white. So the way I look at it, it's like every dietetic association clearly stipulates that you can be 110% healthy on a whole foods plant-based diet. There's no question about it. Like, it's not like, oh, that's just science, right? And then the other fact that we know is that animals like us, like our dogs, like our cats, feel pain and suffering and love and fear. So we know these two pieces of information, yet somehow suggesting to follow science and suggesting to follow being nice to animals who we know we would care for if we saw them in front of us, somehow that's extreme. But being part of this insane system of torture that's hurting billions upon billions of animals and sea creatures and destroying the planet, destroying our waterways, destroying everything, destroying our bodies, no, that's normal. And that's where I realize we're living in a matrix, because it's like a big joke.
It really is. And it's quite scary to think that, and the thing is, there's people that know that this is the reality. Like, they know that there's a danger out there. They know that there is a matrix, but they choose to remain plugged into the matrix because they're too scared of realizing that their entire life was a lie and breaking out of it and having to restart their identity. So that's the other sinister part of the matrix, where the deeper you go into the programming, the harder it becomes to break out of it, because now you're just like, wow, I had this whole life that was a simulation, and now it might just be a lie this whole time.
Yeah, like I was I was in a plane recently, okay, and there was this Hindu guy sitting next to me, all right, and I'm just sitting there, and he calls the air hostess and he's like, listen, I requested a Hindu non-vegetarian meal. And I'm thinking, Hindu non-vegetarian meal? Ye kahan se aa gaya? What is this now? My basic brain is like, how can a Hindu eat meat? It doesn't make sense. I don't understand that. That does not fit into the basic tenets of what Hinduism even is.
Yeah, it's very odd because like Hinduism is founded on ahimsa and like non-violence. And it comes down to just, I guess, the way people identify themselves, because in anthropology, like they teach us that if someone identifies as a certain religion, who is the judge to determine whether they are that religion or not? So you can have a Hindu meat eater, a Hindu cannibal, and I believe there are. And the problem is, if they just call themselves Hindu, no one's going to police them and say you're not a real Hindu. But in actuality, I would agree, like you're not following the scriptures properly if you're committing violence.
Well, that's the thing. It's like cherry picking, though. It's like people will do that, I find, in so many religions. They'll cherry pick stuff. It's like, I'll just take the good bits out of the religion, I'll do those, but then I'll ignore all the other bits. And it's like, well, yeah, that's where things get a little dicey for me, because as you said, Hinduism is based on non-violence. How are you a Hindu if you're practicing violence and then saying you're one?
It's crazy because like if you really think about it, like what would the Hindu gods do in this situation if they knew about the industry, if they knew about what happens to cows and chickens and pigs? Would they consume them? If you're a Christian, would Jesus consume an animal? Would he actually kill an animal? And
Of
how
course.
how would he kill it?
How would he kill an animal?
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, I think when we think about any religion, like even if we think about Islam and we think about Christianity or Hinduism, I think that's a point that you made that makes a lot of sense, which is no just God. It doesn't matter from what religion we're talking about. No just God would endorse you hurting an animal for something you don't need. And it's very different if a god might say, because very often I get comments on my Instagram reels where people are like, oh, you know, Allah made animals for us to eat. I'm like, all right, let's believe for a second that Allah did make animals for us to eat. Do you honestly think if he's a just God, which we all claim he is, right, to those who are Islamic, if he's just, then why would he be cool with you slaughtering millions upon millions of animals for either a celebration or for your taste buds or for tradition? These are not matters of survival, right? These are all choices that we're making. So it's out of greed. So no just God would be supporting that. So you're not acting in accordance with, you're manipulating something that was written a long time ago, maybe in a different context, in a context of survival, and you've manipulated that and brought it into a modern society context and just using it to justify your taste buds. That's all it is.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think in the Quran it actually states, he who eats meat in excess or in greed is committing sin. Right? So basically it translates to like if you're doing it in a survival situation, right? Like you're stuck on a, I don't know, island, it's just tooth and nail, you're fighting with animals for, your own life. It's a different situation because the Quran was written in a time where, like it was a survival situation, but you're in the modern age now. Like anytime you eat meat in the first world country, you're not doing it for survival. You're doing it because of excess. You're doing it because of greed. You're doing it because you want to taste fried chicken, right? So
yeah, exactly. So Arjun, you are a vegan Hindu guy. Tell me, would you date someone, let's say a girl who eats chicken every day, loves to have her dairy, her milk, her meat? Would you date her?
I used to say, it's fine. I don't want to be too judgmental. This is me like maybe like 7 years ago, right? I was pretty new to the vegan game, and I had a pretty wild story because once I kissed a girl who's a meat eater, and there was a very ghastly taste in my mouth. And then I looked over her shoulder and I saw a beef jerky wrapper.
Ew.
And from that point forward, I made like a promise to myself, I will never date another meat eater again, just because now I feel like I'm like secondhand consuming meat products. I'm consuming meat products secondhand.
What if the meat eater that you're dating brushes her teeth every time, like before she kisses you?
Okay, so in that situation, sure, but I would also still have a condition where she needs to either have a conversation about veganism with me because I'm pretty persuasive, or she needs to be open-minded to watching documentaries and doing some research on this. I think if she's open-minded, because, you know, I didn't start out as a vegan, but if she's at least open-minded to that, I think it could work if she would transition. But either way, she would need to be a vegan because it's such like a big part of who I am. It's my moral baseline, you know what I mean? So for me, it's like if someone's supporting cruelty and I don't want to support cruelty, it just doesn't like align with our foundational values on how you're going to build a family and a house, you know?
Well, that's something we were talking about before, is that for me, if I'm dating someone that's not a vegan, it's not just that we have different likes or dislikes, and I just need to respect your views on something and you respect mine. It's not that. It's not like it's a religion or it's something like that. It's literally a moral baseline. It's the equivalent to how I would see someone supporting abuse of women, or supporting abuse of dogs, or supporting abuse of children, anything like that. So if our moral compasses are not aligned, then, I mean, even if I get into a relationship with someone and they're not a vegan now, but I see that they're so open-minded and they might become a vegan, my issue there is that I'm wanting them to change. I'm not accepting them as they are now, because what if we get emotionally involved and then a couple of years down the track, they maybe go vegan for a bit, but then they decide they want to go back to being omnivore again. And I'm already emotionally involved now. So I then have to deal with this issue of like, oh, fuck, what do I do now? You know? So I'd rather not even deal with that and just straight off the bat, someone that's vegan. So already, like, even things like traveling, dude, like when you travel with a vegan, you don't even have to stress about where we're going to go eat, what are we going to do, the choices we make. Someone's already thinking about these things. So I just feel like dating non-vegans is just so annoying. And then they're dumb. Like, they make dumb comments.
Yeah, especially if they're trolling you and disrespecting you, it's just like yeah, definitely not. And to be like clear, like yeah, my first option would definitely be like a vegan girl for sure. I think that's ideal.
It's just hard to find vegans to date though, because it's not just that it just has to be a vegan. Like, they need to be like emotionally intelligent. I need to be attracted to them. We have to like have shared goals and shared visions. There's so many other things as well. So the dating pool is like nothing getting smaller and smaller.
It's getting smaller. I feel you on that. The way I think about it is, I see what you mean. Like, we don't want to change someone's beliefs and someone's personalities, but I think with veganism, and I think you might agree as well, I think everyone is secretly a vegan inside. It's just a matter of breaking them out of the matrix. So I think on one hand, you can see it as like, oh, I'm changing them, which you are. You definitely are changing them, but I kind of see it as like, I might be enlightening them. So if I can do it, maybe that'd be great. But that is also a process, and there's going to be some arguments and friction there. So it's probably just wiser to just, if you can already find a vegan partner, and just go in already. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to stress, like you said, about traveling, because then you're going to be the one teaching them like, oh yeah, that has dairy in it. Oh yeah, that has 1 drop of egg in it. You can't consume that, or boycotting everything, you know? So then you have to be like their mentor, and then that also creates like a little bit of like a, you know, issue with the dynamics, because now you're like babying them with everything and policing them sometimes. You don't want to do that either.
Yeah, exactly. Do people ever make fun of you for being vegan?
Oh,
Or like
yeah.
make dumb jokes?
Oh yeah, all the time. I can see why they do it, because coming from like a psychology background, I think it's a lot of what's called shadow projection. So when people troll or when people use humor, it's basically an ego defense mechanism, right? So when they have a certain part of their ego that's being attacked, right? Like if me existing as a vegan makes someone feel attacked for their own beliefs and their own traditions, they are going to either be humble and be like, you know what, I need to talk to my own ego and fix something I'm doing, or they're going to defend their ego, put a wall, and then they're going to attack you to try to ridicule you and make you feel inferior so that they can make their ego feel satisfied. So that I can see the psychological warfare happening. So when they troll me, I don't see them as trolling me. I see them as they're insecure and they're trying to really cater to their ego because they don't want to have a logical discussion about it. In fact, I talk logic on like my content, and then when I get trolls, instead of them trying to logically talk to me, I can already tell that they've already checked out because they can't respond logically and there's no intellectual conversation here, so now they're just going to be trolling me. But I mean, with the algorithm, the more you troll, the more I grow, so all good.
Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting because, like, you know, vegans have this perception that they're like holier than thou, trying to preach their views onto other people and making them feel, you know, bad for eating meat or whatever. And I find it fascinating because I never try and, like, I'll never look at someone eating meat and be like, oh, you know, you're wrong and you shouldn't do this and blah, blah. But even without me saying anything, people will feel, yeah, defensive around me and go straight into some kind of defensive mode, right? Which I find fascinating. That to me suggests there's something really deep in the core that makes them feel that way. Just my presence makes them feel that way. Like I haven't even said shit, you know? So yeah, it's amazing. But so right now, especially in India, we're seeing a lot of these reels fly around with these fitness guys who are basically saying that, you know, you need to have all this dal to get protein versus you can just have like 1 cup of some chicken and you'll get the same amount of protein. And if you're having the dal option, you're getting so much carbs and it's not good for your overall well-being and your health and fitness goals, etc. But I find that really problematic. I mean, they're not looking at the whole picture of the fact that there are so many other sources of protein.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me address this. They're comparing the wrong things, right? They'll compare like chicken with dal, or they'll compare chicken with quinoa. So how about compare it with like tofu? Compare it with seitan. Compare it with tempeh, right? These are extremely high protein sources with excellent macros, low fat, low calorie, and they're just high in protein. In fact, I mean, you look at the results, right? There's plenty of vegan athletes in India, right, or just around the world that get their protein somehow. So what are they eating? And the thing is, even if you wanted to eat dal or beans or legumes or whatever it may be, if you couple it with rice, with bread, you complete the amino acid profile. So you do absorb the protein better. So there's a lot of ways to do it. People have always done it. And to be honest, I think it's a little bit, or not a little bit, it is healthier to have a variety of protein sources from a variety of vegetables and fruits and grains and nuts and seeds and broccoli than it is to just rely on one animal source, because that animal source can have parasites, it has carcinogenic protein, it has cholesterol, it has all this stuff, versus eating all these plants. It's not going to give you issues. In fact, it's going to have nutrients and phytochemicals that's going to heal your body. So you're much better off putting in just a tad bit of more work sourcing those things, which are way cheaper, and being healthier and getting your protein and, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Ashley, you know what? I've got a couple of reels that I thought we could do responses to.
Death is what happens to you when you're a vegan. They lie to you. Nothing that they tell you is true. And that is true of every single vegan I know. They hate themselves so much, they will only suck on quinoa for sustenance. And I tell you that they lie Because look, they will tell you that this festering thing is in fact a steak. They want you sat in the dark, sucking on the arse end of a locust. We need the freedom to
Oh my
choose.
God, please
real.
tell
This
me.
is
This
not
is
real.
real. This is
This is-
real.
Festering. Oh my god. It's like a British Karen. Like, my god. She looks like she's from Harry Potter or something. Like, what the heck is going on?
Why are meat eaters so triggered? I don't understand.
I'm telling you, it's an ego defense mechanism. I think they know we're low-key right, and they're trying to really like manipulate people into hating vegans somehow and saying they're sucking on quinoa. Like, they're making vegans sound so disgusting. Like, they're like, I want
Calling it cabbage festering.
yeah, like she's like the language she's using. I mean, I will say it's very poetic. Like, I'm actually quite impressed by her like Shakespearean language. But it's like trying a little too hard to a point where it's like, all right, where's this trauma coming from? You must have had a really bad debate with a vegan and got your butt kicked.
I think this lady just needs to have sex.
Yeah, she needs to get laid. Just
Yeah,
relax.
it's probably been like 10 years or something. Well, thank you so much, Arjun. It's been fantastic having you again on Kindness with Amy. It's been a pleasure. And of course, I've learned so much chatting to you, like always.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here as well.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye.